The mansion was silent that morning, too silent for a home where two children lived. Then it happened, a sound so delicate and uncertain that it barely reached across the room. "Mama!" Robert Harrison stopped breathing. His leather briefcase fell from his fingers and landed on the marble floor with a dull thud. He stood completely still, his entire body rigid as stone. His eyes were locked on a scene that his mind could not process. His twin sons, Christopher and Matthew, who had never uttered a single syllable in their 4 years of life, were seated on the cream-colored carpet, their gazes fixed on the woman kneeling before them. Diana, dressed in her plain gray uniform, her worn rubber gloves still covering her hands, had both arms extended toward the boys. Her voice shook as she whispered softly, "It's all right, sweetheart, I'm right here with you." Then the word came again. "Mama," this time from the other child. The world around Robert seemed to collapse inward. His chest constricted until he thought his ribs might crack. His throat turned to sandpaper. His entire existence froze in that doorway. His sons, born with severe cerebral palsy, unable to move their legs or control most of their muscles, were forming words with their mouths and speaking the one word that shattered everything doctors had ever told him. He felt like he was drowning in air. For 4 long years, specialists had told him his boys would never communicate. Neurologists said their brains had suffered too much damage during birth. Speech therapists said their condition made language impossible. But here, inside his own home, the unthinkable was unfolding before his eyes. They were calling the housekeeper Mama. Diana had not noticed him standing in the doorway. Her full attention remained on Christopher and Matthew, her voice steady and tender, as though any sudden movement might destroy the fragile magic happening on that carpet. "Where are you watching from? Drop your country in the comments, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button to support our growth." Robert Harrison had built an empire from nothing. At 42 years old, he controlled a technology corporation worth billions of dollars. He owned properties in 7 countries. He had negotiated deals with presidents and prime ministers. He had stared down competitors who wanted to destroy him and emerged victorious every single time, but nothing in his life had prepared him for this moment. Nothing had prepared him for the sight of his disabled sons, speaking to a woman who earned minimum wage cleaning his floors. His mind raced backward through time, trying to understand how he had arrived at this impossible moment. 4 years ago, his world had been completely different. He had been married to Catherine, a stunning fashion model who graced magazine covers and walked runways in Paris and Milan. Their marriage had been the envy of high society. Photographers followed them everywhere. News articles called them the perfect power couple. Catherine had become pregnant and Robert had been overjoyed. He had imagined teaching his son to play baseball, to ride horses, to sail the boats Robert kept at the marina. He had pictured family vacations and future business partnerships. He had dreamed of passing his company down to a capable heir. Then the twins arrived 2 months early. The delivery had been catastrophic. Catherine had nearly died on the operating table. The Bobbies had been starved of oxygen for several critical minutes. When the doctors finally placed Christopher and Matthew in Robert's arms, they were so tiny and fragile that he feared his touch might break them. The medical team delivered the devastating news within hours. Both boys had suffered severe brain damage. They would likely never walk. They would probably never speak. Their cognitive abilities would be severely limited. They would need constant care for their entire lives. Her hands were moving in slow, deliberate gestures as she sang, as though she was conducting an invisible orchestra. The boys were awake. That itself was unusual. They typically slept heavily, exhausted by the effort their bodies required just to exist. But both Christopher and Matthew had their eyes open. They were watching Diana. Their faces, usually slack and expressionless, seemed focused, engaged. Robert had started to step into the room, but something stopped him. This moment felt private, sacred even. He had quietly backed away and returned to his study, but the image stayed with him. The next evening, he found himself walking past the medical wing again at the same time. Diana was there again. This time she was not singing. She was talking to the boys as though they could understand every word. "Christopher, your hair is getting long," she said gently, running her fingers through one boy's dark curls. "We should ask your daddy if we can trim it a little. You would look so handsome. And Matthew, I think your favorite color might be blue. You always look at blue things longer than other colors." "Am I right? Is blue your favorite?" The boys made no response that Robert could detect, but Diana continued speaking to them as though they had answered her. She told them about her day. She described the garden she had seen on her walk to work. She asked them questions and then paused as though waiting for replies that never came. Robert found this deeply unsettling. Was this woman delusional? Did she actually believe these children could understand her? He had almost confronted her, almost demanded to know what she thought she was accomplishing with this bizarre behavior. But something held him back. Maybe it was the expression on her face. She looked at Christopher and Matthew the way Robert had always wished someone would look at them. Not with pity, not with clinical detachment, with genuine affection, with warmth. with the assumption that they were real people worthy of conversation and attention. Robert began finding excuses to walk past the medical wing each evening. Diana was always there after her official duties ended, spending unpaid time with his sons. She never asked for extra compensation. She never drew attention to what she was doing. She simply showed up day after day, treating his boys like they mattered. The night nurses began reporting changes, small things at first. Christopher seemed calmer during his nighttime routine. Matthew was making more sounds as though trying to imitate noises he had heard. Robert told himself these were coincidences, random variations in behavior that meant nothing. Then 3 weeks ago, something extraordinary happened. Robert had been in a video conference that ran late. It was nearly midnight when he finally closed his laptop and headed upstairs. He passed the medical wing and saw that the lights were still on. Diana was there, sitting cross-legged on the floor. She had positioned Christopher and Matthew on cushioned mats in front of her, supported by pillows so they would not fall over. She had a picture book open in her lap. "This is a dog," she was saying, pointing to an illustration. "Dogs say woof woof. Can you try woof woof?" She made the sound slowly, exaggerating the movement of her lips. Christopher made a noise. It was not a word, just a grunt. But it came immediately after Diana's prompt, as though he was trying to copy her. Diana's face lit up like she had witnessed a miracle. "Yes, good job, Christopher. You tried to say woof. You are so smart." She turned to Matthew. "Your turn, woof woof." Matthew made a different sound, higher pitched. "Excellent," Diana praised him. "You both did such a good job. I am so proud of you." Robert had stood frozen in the hallway, his heart pounding. His sons had responded to prompts. They had attempted to imitate sounds. This was something no therapist had ever achieved. The next morning, Robert had called the boys' neurologist and described what he had witnessed. The doctor had been skeptical but intrigued. He suggested increasing their speech therapy sessions and trying some new techniques. But when the therapists came to the house, Christopher and Matthew were their usual unresponsive selves. They made random sounds, but nothing that suggested intentional communication. The therapists left, shaking their heads. That evening, Diana arrived and sat with the boys. Within minutes, they were engaged again, attempting to mimic her sounds, their eyes locked on her face. Robert realized something that made his chest ache. His sons were responding to her specifically, not to trained professionals, not to expensive specialists, to Diana, the housekeeper they barely paid, the woman no one important ever noticed. Robert had tried to understand why. What was Diana doing differently? He watched her carefully over the following weeks. She never raised her voice. She never showed frustration when the boys could not perform a task. She never treated them like they were broken or damaged. She spoke to them with the assumption that they understood everything, even when there was no evidence they did. She touched them gently, stroking their hair, holding their hands, as though physical affection was as important as any therapy. She sang to them, she read to them. She described the world outside their room in vivid detail, painting pictures with words of places they might never see. She treated them like they were whole, like they were her own children. Robert had never treated them that way. He loved his sons. He would have died for them without hesitation. But he had always seen them through the lens of their disabilities. He had always related to them as patients who needed care, not as real boys with personalities and preferences and potential. Diana saw something else. She saw Christopher and Matthew, not their diagnosis, them, and somehow impossibly they were responding to that. Now standing in this doorway, Robert was watching his entire understanding of reality crumble. His sons were speaking. The word they spoke was mama. The person they spoke it to was not their mother. It was Diana, the housekeeper who earned $12 an hour cleaning his mansion. Christopher's lips moved again. "Mama," he said more clearly this time. His small hand, which had never grasped anything with purpose, reached toward Diana. It was a clumsy movement, his arm jerking awkwardly, but it was intentional. He was reaching for her. Diana's eyes filled with tears. She moved closer and took his hand gently in both of hers. "I am here, baby," she whispered. "I will always be here." Matthew made a sound, frustrated that Diana's attention was on his brother. "Mama," he said, his voice louder, more demanding. Diana laughed through her tears and reached for Matthew too, pulling both boys close to her. "My sweet boys," she murmured. "My beautiful, smart, wonderful boys, I am so proud of you. You are doing so amazing." Robert felt something crack deep inside his chest. A wall he had built 4 years ago, brick by brick, to protect himself from the pain of having sons who could never truly be his sons. That wall was collapsing now, and the emotions flooding through the breach were overwhelming. Grief, regret, shame, gratitude, love so powerful it felt like it might kill him. His boys could speak. They had been capable all along, but they had not spoken to him. They had not called him daddy. They had called a woman who cleaned toilets mama, because she was the one who had loved them. She was the one who had believed in them. She was the one who had treated them like they were worth her time and attention and affection. Robert had given his sons everything money could buy. Diana had given them the only thing that actually mattered. She had given them herself. Robert's legs felt weak. He wanted to step into the room. He wanted to join this moment, but he could not move. He felt like an intruder, like he was witnessing something private that he had no right to interrupt. Diana was holding both boys now, rocking them gently, whispering words of encouragement and love. Christopher and Matthew were making sounds, their voices high and uncertain, but undeniably trying to communicate. They were clinging to Diana's uniform with their weak hands. They were looking at her face like she was the center of their entire universe. And maybe she was. Maybe while Robert had been building his empire and managing his wealth and maintaining his reputation, Diana had been building something far more valuable. She had been building a relationship with his sons. She had been giving them a mother. Robert's vision blurred. He realized with shock that he was crying. When was the last time he had cried? Not at his divorce. Not when the doctors delivered their devastating diagnosis. Not even when Catherine had looked at their newborn sons with disgust and walked away. He had not cried because crying meant admitting that he was broken, that his carefully constructed life had fallen apart, that he had failed at the one thing that was supposed to matter most. But now the tears came, hot and unstoppable, because his sons were speaking, because a woman who had every reason to see her job as just a paycheck had instead chosen to love two children who were not hers, because Robert had been so busy trying to fix his sons with money and medicine that he had never stopped to wonder if what they really needed was someone who would simply sit with them and believe they were enough. Diana finally sensed his presence. Her head turned and her eyes met his across the room. The color drained from her face. She released the boys quickly and scrambled to her feet, her hands going to smooth her uniform. "Mr. Harrison," she stammered, her voice shaking. "I am so sorry. I know my shift ended. I should not be here. I will go immediately. I did not mean to overstep. Please do not fire me. I need this job." "I promise I will never." They spoke. Robert's voice came out as a hoarse whisper. He cleared his throat and tried again. "My sons just spoke. They said mama to you." Diana's mouth opened and closed. Her face cycled through several emotions: fear, guilt, confusion. "I can explain," she said desperately. "I have been working with them, just little things. I did not mean to interfere with their medical care. I know I am not qualified. I just thought maybe if someone talked to them like they were normal boys, if someone believed they could understand, maybe." Her voice trailed off. She looked terrified. Robert took a step into the room. Diana instinctively moved back, putting herself between him and the boys as though she thought he might harm them. The gesture cut Robert deeply. His own son's caregiver saw him as a potential threat. "How long?" Robert asked. "How long have you been doing this?" Diana swallowed hard. 6 months. "Since I started working here. I did not plan it. I would finish my cleaning and I would hear them making sounds and I thought they might be lonely. So I started sitting with them, talking to them. Then I noticed they would watch me and I thought maybe they understood more than anyone realized. So I started teaching them things. Simple things, just words and sounds. I never meant to cause trouble. I will stop if you want me to. I will never come in here again after my cleaning duties are done." Robert stared at this woman who looked so ordinary and yet had accomplished something that teams of expensive specialists had declared impossible. "You taught them to speak," he said slowly. "Yes, sir. I mean, they're just starting. They only know a few words, and they cannot say them clearly yet, but they are trying. They understand so much more than anyone thinks. Christopher knows all his colors. Matthew can count to 5. They both know the names of animals. They recognize letters. They are smart, Mr. Harrison. They are so smart. Their bodies do not work right, but their minds are perfect. They just needed someone to take the time to reach them." Robert felt like the floor was tilting beneath him. "Why did you not tell anyone? Why did you not report this progress?" Diana looked down at her worn shoes. "Who would have believed me? I am just a housekeeper. The doctors and therapists would have thought I was crazy. And I was afraid if I told anyone I would get in trouble for spending unauthorized time with your sons. I thought I might lose my job. And if I lost my job, I could not come back here. I could not keep working with Christopher and Matthew. So I kept quiet. I know that was wrong. I should have told you, but I was scared." She was right to be scared, Robert realized. In any other household, what she had done would be seen as a violation, overstepping boundaries, getting too attached to the employer's children. She could have been fired immediately, should have been fired by conventional standards. But conventional standards had given Robert 4 years of his sons making no progress. Diana's unconventional approach had given him this impossible moment. Robert walked slowly across the room. Diana's body tensed, but she held her ground, still positioned protectively between him and the boys. Robert knelt down on the carpet beside his sons. Up close he could see how different they looked. They were not the blank, unresponsive infants he remembered. Their eyes were bright and alert. They tracked his movement with clear interest. They looked like real children, like whole children. "Christopher," Robert said softly. "Matthew, do you know who I am?" The boys stared at him. Matthew made a sound, but it was not a word. Christopher turned his head away, looking past Robert to where Diana stood. "Mama," Christopher said plaintively, reaching toward her. The word hit Robert like a physical blow. His son knew how to ask for what he wanted. He just did not want his father. He wanted Diana. Robert had to close his eyes against the pain of that. When he opened them again, Diana was kneeling beside him. "They do know you," she said gently. "I have shown them pictures. I tell them about you all the time. I tell them their daddy loves them very much. I tell them you work very hard to take care of them. They understand. They need time. They are not used to you being here." Robert forced himself to nod. She was being kind, but he heard the truth beneath her words. His sons were not used to him being there because he was never there. He had delegated their care to others. He had visited them for a few minutes each day, usually when they were already asleep. He had treated them like they were a problem to be managed rather than children to be raised. He had been so focused on trying to fix them that he had never tried to know them. Diana had done what Robert should have been doing all along. She had loved them. Now Robert understood why they called her Mama. She was their mother, not Catherine, who had abandoned them. Not the rotating staff of nurses who provided clinical care. Diana, the housekeeper who stayed after her shift ended, who sat on the floor and sang to them, who believed they were capable of miracles. "I need to speak with you," Robert said, his voice rough. "In private now." Diana's face went white. She nodded stiffly. "Yes, sir." She looked at the boys. "I will be right back, sweethearts. You rest for a minute." She stood and followed Robert out of the medical wing, down the hallway, and into his study. Robert closed the heavy door behind them and then stood there, his back to Diana, trying to find words for the earthquake happening inside him. Behind him, he heard Diana's frightened breathing. Robert turned around slowly to face Diana. She stood near the door, her hands clasped tightly in front of her, her shoulders hunched as though bracing for a blow. Her eyes were fixed on the floor. She looked like a woman waiting for her execution. The silence stretched between them, heavy and suffocating. Robert walked to his desk and gripped the edge of it, needing something solid to hold on to. His mind was spinning in 1,000 directions at once. Finally, he spoke. "Tell me everything. From the beginning, I want to know exactly what you have been doing with my sons." Diana's voice came out small and shaky. "Mr. Harrison, please, I know I overstepped. I know I had no right to spend time with them outside my duties, but I promise I never did anything to hurt them. I would never hurt them. I just wanted to help. I thought maybe if someone believed in them, if someone treated them like they were capable." "Diana," Robert's voice cut through her panicked rambling. "I am not angry. I need you to tell me everything you have been doing because I need to understand how you achieved what no one else could. Please, sit down." He gestured to one of the leather chairs across from his desk. Diana looked at the chair like it might be a trap, but she slowly lowered herself into it, perching on the very edge of the seat. Robert sat down in his own chair and leaned forward, his hands folded on the desk. "Start at the beginning. When did you first realize my sons could understand you?" Diana took a shaky breath. "The second day I worked here, I was cleaning the medical wing and I was humming while I worked. I did not even realize I was doing it. Then I looked over at Christopher's bed and saw him watching me, really watching me. His eyes were following me as I moved around the room. Most people would have thought it was just random, but I have worked with disabled children before, at my last job at the nursing facility. I learned that just because someone cannot move or speak does not mean they are not aware. So I walked over to Christopher's bed and I talked to him. I said hello and told him my name. And his eyes stayed on my face the whole time. That was when I knew he was listening, he was understanding. So I started talking to both of them whenever I cleaned their room. I would describe what I was doing. I would tell them about my day. I would ask them questions even though they could not answer. Then one evening, I finished my work early and I just sat down on the floor between their beds. I did not have anywhere I needed to be. My apartment is small and empty. I live alone. I have no family, so I stayed. I pulled out a children's book I had bought at a thrift store and I started reading to them. And Mr. Harrison, they were captivated. Both boys kept their eyes on me the entire time. When I turned the pages, they looked at the pictures. When I used different voices for different characters, Matthew made a sound like he was trying to laugh. That was the moment I realized these children were not the hopeless cases everyone believed they were. They were just trapped. Their bodies would not let them show what was inside their minds, so I decided I would help them find a way out. Robert felt his throat tight. "What did you do next?" Diana's voice grew stronger as she talked, the fear slowly being replaced by passion. "I started coming every evening after my shift. I would work with them for an hour, sometimes two. I began with very simple things. I would hold up objects and name them: ball, cup, book, spoon. I would repeat the words over and over and I would watch their eyes to see if they understood. Then I started with sounds. Animal sounds mostly because they are simple and fun. I would say the cow says moo and then I would make the moo sound really big and silly. And I would watch to see if they tried to move their mouths. At first, nothing happened. For weeks, nothing happened, but I did not give up. I kept coming back. I kept talking to them. I kept believing they could do it. Then one night, about 4 months ago, I made a dog sound, woof woof, and Christopher's mouth moved. Just a tiny bit, but it moved at the right time, like he was trying to copy me. I almost screamed. I was so excited. I praised him like he had just won the Olympics. I told him he was brilliant and strong and amazing. The next night he did it again. And the night after that Matthew did it too. They were learning. Slowly, so slowly, but they were learning. Robert's chest ached 4 months ago. His sons had been making progress for 4 months and he had not known. He had walked past their room countless times, never stopping to look inside, never wondering what was happening in there. When did they say their first word? He asked quietly. Diana's eyes softened. 3 weeks ago. I had been working on Mama with them for over a month. I would point to myself and say Mama over and over. I chose that word because it is one of the easiest words for children to say. The M sound is simple. Bobbies all over the world say Mama first because it is a sound they can make by just putting their lips together. I never thought, she paused, looking uncomfortable. I never thought they would actually call me that. I just wanted to give them an easy word to practice. But then one night Christopher looked right at me and said it, Mama, clear as day. And then he said it again. And I just started crying. I could not help it. I held him and I cried and I told him I was so proud of him. After that, they both started saying it regularly. Only to me though, only when we are alone. I think they feel safe with me. I think they know I believe in them. Robert had to look away. The jealousy that crashed through him was ugly and sharp. His sons felt safe with the housekeeper, not with him, not with their own father, but he had no right to be jealous. He had not earned their trust. Diana had. What else can they do? He asked, his voice rough. Diana sat up straighter. Christopher can say about 10 words now. Mama, yes, no, more, up, high, buy, want, juice, and he is working on please. Matthew can say 7 words. He started a little later than Christopher, but he's catching up fast. They both understand hundreds of words. I can give them simple instructions and they will try to follow them. If I say look at the window, they look at the window. If I say, Christopher, can you try to lift your arm? He will try. It does not work very well because of their physical limitations, but he understands what I am asking. They know colors, numbers up to 10, letters, animals, body parts, family members. I have been showing them pictures of you and telling them all about you. I tell them their daddy is a good man who loves them very much. I tell them you are working hard to give them a good life. I wanted them to know you even if, she trailed off. Even if I was never there, Robert finished for her. The words tasted like ash in his mouth. Diana did not deny it. Robert stood up and walked to the window. His estate stretched out before him, perfectly manicured lawns and gardens maintained by a full staff. He owned all of this. He owned properties around the world. He had more money than he could spend in 10 lifetimes, but he had failed at the most important thing. He had failed to be a father to his sons. I need to ask you something, he said without turning around. And I need you to be completely honest with me. Yes, sir. Why did you do this? You could have just done your job and gone home. You could have treated my sons like every other employee treats them, with professional detachment. Why did you invest so much of yourself in children who are not yours? What did you hope to gain? There was a long pause. When Diana spoke, her voice was thick with emotion. I was not hoping to gain anything, Mr. Harrison. I did it because I know what it feels like to be invisible. I know what it feels like to be in a room full of people and have everyone look right through you like you do not exist. That is how I feel every single day. I am a housekeeper. People do not see me. They see the work I do, but they do not see me as a person. I am invisible. When I looked at your sons, I saw that same invisibility. Everyone looked at their disabilities and never saw the children underneath. Everyone had decided they were hopeless, so no one tried to reach them. No one saw them as real boys with thoughts and feelings and potential. They were invisible, just like me, and I thought maybe if I could see them, really see them, maybe they would not feel so alone. Maybe they would know that someone in this world thought they mattered. I did not do it for money or recognition. I did it because those boys deserved to have at least one person who believed they were worth the effort. And once I started working with them, once I saw how smart they are, once I saw the little personalities starting to emerge, I fell in love with them. I could not help it. They are the most wonderful children I have ever known. They fight so hard for every tiny bit of progress. They never give up, even though everything is so difficult for them. They are brave and strong and beautiful. How could I not love them? Robert turned around and looked at this woman who had given his sons what he had not. She was not beautiful, she was not sophisticated, she was not wealthy or educated or connected. She was ordinary in every measurable way, except for the size of her heart that was extraordinary. You love them, he said. It was not a question. With everything I have, Diana answered simply. I know I have no right, they are not my children, but I cannot help how I feel. They are my boys. When I am not here, I think about them constantly. I worry about whether they are comfortable, whether they are lonely, whether they are making progress. When I am with them, I am happier than I have been in years. They have given my life meaning. They have made me feel like I matter. So yes, Mr. Harrison, I love your sons, and I am sorry if that is inappropriate. I am sorry if I crossed a line, but I will not apologize for loving them. Tears were running down her face now, and she made no effort to wipe them away. She sat in that chair with her chin up and her shoulders back, no longer looking like a terrified employee but like a mother defending her children. Robert felt something shift inside his chest, a decision crystallizing, a path forward becoming clear. "Diana," he said slowly, "I am going to ask you something that is highly unusual. You can say no. There will be no negative consequences if you say no. You will keep your job and everything will continue as it has been, but I need to ask." Diana wiped her face with the back of her hand. "What is it?" "My sons need you. That is obvious. You have given them something no amount of money could buy. You have given them hope. You have given them a future. You have given them love. I want to hire you as their full-time caregiver, not a housekeeper. Their nanny, their teacher, their therapist, whatever title you want. You would move into the house. You would have your own suite in the family wing, not the staff quarters. You would be with Christopher and Matthew all day, every day. You would have a staff to help you with their physical care. The nurses can stay for the medical tasks, but you would be in charge of their development. You would continue doing what you have been doing, but without having to hide it, without having to squeeze it in after your cleaning shifts. You would have resources. I will hire anyone you need. I will buy any equipment you think would help. I will pay you." He named a figure that made Diana's eyes go wide. "That is per year, plus housing, food, health insurance, retirement benefits, everything. All I ask is that you give my sons the same devotion you have been giving them for free. Can you do that?" Diana's mouth opened and closed several times. She looked like she could not process what she was hearing. "Mr. Harrison, that is too much. You do not need to pay me that much. I would do this for free. I have been doing it for free." "I know," Robert said. "That is exactly why you deserve to be paid. Diana, you have given my sons a miracle. You have given me my sons back. There is no amount of money that adequately compensates that. But I can at least make sure you never have to worry about rent or bills or anything else. I can make sure you are financially secure so that you can focus entirely on Christopher and Matthew. So what do you say? Will you take the position?" Diana stood up slowly, her legs shaky. "Can I ask one thing? Anything. I want to be clear about what this job is. You are hiring me to be their caregiver and teacher, but you need to be their father. I cannot replace you. I should not replace you. Those boys need their daddy. They need to know you love them. They need to spend time with you. I can teach them words and numbers and colors, but you need to teach them who you are. You need to be present in their lives. Can you do that?" The question hung in the air between them. It was a challenge. Diana was making it clear that this arrangement would not work if Robert continued to be an absent father. She was asking him to change, to show up, to be present. Robert thought about his life, the endless meetings, the business trips, the social obligations, the careful construction of his public image. All of it had been a way to avoid the pain of his private life. All of it had been an excuse to not face his sons. But everything had changed now. His sons could speak. They could learn. They had potential that Robert had never allowed himself to believe in. They deserved better than a father who only existed on paper. "Yes," Robert said firmly, "I can do that. I will do that starting tonight. I will clear my schedule. I will work from home. I will be there for them. I promise you, Diana, I promise my sons, things are going to be different." Diana searched his face for a long moment as though trying to determine if he meant it. Whatever she saw must have satisfied her because she nodded. "Then yes, I accept the position. When do I start?" "Tonight, right now. I will have someone move your things from wherever you're staying. You can have the room next to the boys. Actually, you can have whatever room you want. Pick any guest suite and it is yours." Diana shook her head. "I want the room closest to Christopher and Matthew. I want to be able to hear them if they need me during the night." "Done." Robert walked around his desk and extended his hand. Diana looked at it, then slowly reached out and shook it. Her hand was rough and callous from years of hard work. Robert held it gently, aware that he was holding the hand of the woman who had saved his sons. "Thank you," he said, his voice breaking. "Thank you for not giving up on them. Thank you for seeing what no one else saw. Thank you for loving them when I was too afraid to." Diana's eyes filled with fresh tears. "You do not need to thank me. They gave me just as much as I gave them. They gave me a reason to wake up in the morning. They gave me joy. They gave me a family." She pulled her hand back and wiped her face. "I should go back to them. They will be wondering where I went." "I am coming with you," Robert said. "I need to spend time with my sons. I need to start learning how to be their father. Will you teach me?" Diana smiled, a small, genuine smile that transformed her ordinary face into something almost beautiful. "It would be my honor." They walked back to the medical wing together. As they approached, Robert could hear sounds coming from the boys' room. Not crying or distress, but babbling. Happy experimental sounds. Christopher and Matthew were talking to each other in their own language, a mixture of sounds and attempted words that no one else could understand but that clearly meant something to them. Robert stopped in the doorway again, but this time Diana took his hand and gently pulled him into the room. "Boys," she said warmly, "your daddy wants to spend time with you. Is that okay?" Christopher and Matthew turned their heads toward Robert. Their expressions were wary, uncertain. They did not reach for him the way they reached for Diana. Robert knelt down on the carpet where Diana had been sitting earlier. He felt awkward and unsure. What did you say to children you had never really talked to before? How did you connect with sons you barely knew? Diana settled down beside him. Start simple, she said quietly. Tell them something about yourself. Tell them what you did today. Just talk to them like they are normal boys because they are. Robert took a breath and looked at his sons, really looked at them. Christopher had his mother's dark hair and his father's gray eyes. Matthew had lighter hair and blue eyes that must have come from some distant relative. They were both thin, their muscles underdeveloped from lack of use, but their faces were alert and intelligent. They were beautiful. Hi Christopher, hi Matthew, Robert said, his voice shaking. I am your daddy. I know I have not spent much time with you and I am sorry for that. I am going to do better. I want to know you. I want you to know me. Diana told me you are both very smart. She told me you are learning words and colors and numbers. I am so proud of you. I wish I had been here to see all your progress, but I am here now, and I am not going anywhere. I am going to be here every day from now on. The boys stared at him. Matthew made a sound that was not quite a word. Christopher's mouth moved, but nothing came out. Then so quietly that Robert almost missed it, Christopher whispered, Dada. The word was uncertain, hesitant, like a question. Like Christopher was testing whether this word belonged to Robert, like he was asking if Robert was real. Robert felt like his heart had been ripped out of his chest. Yes, he said, his vision blurring with tears. Yes, buddy, Dada, I am your Dada. He reached out slowly, giving Christopher time to pull away if he wanted to, but Christopher did not pull away. Robert gently touched his son's soft hair, then cupped his small face in his hand. I am your Dada and I love you so much. I love you both so much. I am sorry it took me so long to show you. Matthew made a louder sound, clearly wanting attention. More, he said. It was one of his words, more. He wanted more of whatever was happening. Robert laughed, a sound halfway between joy and sob. He reached for Matthew too, touching his face, feeling the warmth of his skin. You want more attention? Okay, I can do that. I can give you so much more. Diana was crying again, but she was smiling too. She put her hand on Robert's shoulder. See, they know you. They just need time with you. They need to learn that you are safe, that you are not going anywhere. You can do this. Robert nodded, not trusting himself to speak. He sat there on the floor with his sons, touching them, talking to them, while Diana guided him through simple interactions. She showed him how to get their attention, how to read their subtle cues, how to encourage them to try new sounds. The minutes stretched into an hour, then two. Robert forgot about the emails waiting in his inbox. He forgot about the conference call scheduled for tomorrow. He forgot about the board meeting and the property acquisition and the stock prices. All of that faded into background noise. The only thing that mattered was this room, this moment, these two boys who were his sons. Around 9 o'clock, the night nurse arrived for her shift. She stopped in the doorway, clearly confused to see Robert sitting on the floor with the boys and the housekeeper. Mr. Harrison, is everything all right? Do you need me? Robert looked up at her. Yes, everything is fine. Actually, there are going to be some changes. Diana is no longer the housekeeper. She is now Christopher and Matthew's primary caregiver. You will report to her from now on. She will coordinate all their care. The nurse's eyebrows shot up, but she was too professional to argue. Yes, sir, shall I prepare them for bed? Diana, Robert deferred to her. Diana glanced at the boys. Let us give them another 30 minutes. They are engaged right now. It would be good for them to have more time with their father, but yes, then bedtime. The nurse nodded and stepped out of the room. Robert looked at Diana. Was that okay, the way I told her? It was perfect, Diana said. You need to establish that I am in charge of the boys' care. The staff needs to understand that my decisions regarding Christopher and Matthew come from you. Otherwise, there will be confusion and resistance. Robert had not thought of that, but Diana was right. His household staff was used to a certain hierarchy. Suddenly elevating a housekeeper to a position of authority would create friction unless Robert made it absolutely clear that this was his decision and it was not negotiable. I will send an email to the entire staff tonight, he said. I will explain the change and make it clear that you have my full support and authority when it comes to the boys. Thank you. Diana turned her attention back to Christopher and Matthew. Okay, boys, let us practice one more time. Can you say hi to your Dada? Dada, Christopher said more confidently this time. Dada, Matthew echoed. Robert felt tears threatening again. He was not a man who cried. He had built his reputation on being tough and unemotional in business. But sitting here with his sons, hearing them call him Dada for the first time, he could not hold back the emotion. These were his boys, his sons. And for the first time in 4 years, he felt like he might actually be able to be their father. The 30 minutes passed too quickly. When Diana announced it was time for bed, Robert felt a sharp disappointment. He was not ready to leave. He had just found his sons. How could he walk away now? Diana seemed to read his mind. You can come back in the morning, she said gently. They will be here. They are not going anywhere, and neither are you. Right, Robert said. I will be here. First thing in the morning, he leaned down and kissed Christopher's forehead, then Matthew's. Good night, boys. I love you. I will see you when you wake up. Bye, Christopher said. Bye, Matthew added. Robert stood up slowly, his knees stiff from sitting on the floor. He watched as Diana and the night nurse began the complex process of preparing the boys for bed. It involved multiple steps, specialized equipment, careful positioning to prevent bed sores and breathing problems. It was intensive and time-consuming. Robert had never stayed to watch this process before. He had always been gone by bedtime. As he walked out of the medical wing and back to his own rooms, Robert felt like he was moving through a different house. The walls looked the same, the furniture was unchanged, but everything felt different because he was different. He went to his study and sat down at his computer. The emails that had seemed so urgent that morning now seemed trivial. Board members asking about quarterly projections, lawyers requesting signatures on contracts, executives wanting approval for expansion plans. None of it mattered, not really. What mattered was two little boys down the hall who had just learned to call him Dada. Robert pulled up a blank email and addressed it to his entire household staff. He typed quickly, not bothering to polish the language. Effective immediately, Diana Martinez is promoted to the position of primary caregiver for Christopher and Matthew Harrison. She is no longer a member of the cleaning staff. Diana will have full authority over all decisions related to the boys' care, development, and daily schedules. All staff members are expected to provide Diana with their complete cooperation and support. Diana's decisions regarding the boys are to be treated as my direct orders. Anyone who has a problem with this arrangement should come speak to me immediately. This change is non-negotiable and permanent. Robert Harrison. He hit send before he could second-guess himself. Within minutes, his phone started buzzing with text messages from his head of household staff asking for clarification, expressing concern about the unusual nature of this promotion. Robert ignored them all. They could adjust or they could leave. He did not care which. He pulled up his calendar next. Meetings filled every day for the next 3 months. Conference calls, site visits, investor presentations, charity galas, media appearances. Robert began canceling them. One by one, he cleared his schedule. His assistant would have a heart attack when she saw this in the morning, but that was her problem. Robert was done prioritizing business over his sons. He would still run his company, but he would do it from home. He would take meetings via video conference. He would delegate more. He would trust his executives to handle things without his constant oversight. Because he had more important things to do now, he had to learn how to be a father. By the time Robert finished reorganizing his life, it was past midnight. He was exhausted, but he could not sleep. He kept thinking about the moment when Christopher had whispered Dada for the first time. He kept replaying the look on Diana's face when she talked about loving his sons. He kept wondering how many other moments he had missed over the past 4 years because he had been too busy running from his own pain. Finally, around 2 in the morning, Robert got out of bed and walked back to the medical wing. He told himself he just wanted to check on the boys to make sure they were comfortable. But the truth was he needed to see them again. He needed to confirm that tonight had been real. The night nurse was dozing in a chair in the corner when Robert entered quietly. The boys were both asleep in their specialized beds, which were designed to keep them in positions that prevented complications. Christopher was on his back, his mouth slightly open, breathing deeply. Matthew was on his side, one small hand curled near his face. They looked peaceful, innocent, like any other sleeping children. Robert stood between their beds and watched them sleep. He had done this before in the early days after they were born. He had stood in the hospital nursery and watched them fight for every breath, hooked up to machines so tiny and fragile. He had been terrified then that they would die. And they survived. When they came home, he had been grateful. But then the reality of their condition had set in. The endless medical appointments, the grim prognoses, the pitying looks from people who saw them, the complete disruption of every plan Robert had ever had for his life. He had gradually withdrawn, unable to face the pain of having sons who would never be what he had dreamed they would be. He had convinced himself that providing for their physical needs was enough. That paying for the best care was the same as being a good father, but it was not enough. He saw that now. His sons had not needed his money, they had needed his presence, they had needed his belief, they had needed him to sit on the floor and talk to them and believe they were capable of more. Diana had understood that. A housekeeper with no medical training had understood what Robert, with all his resources and intelligence, had failed to grasp. People did not need you to be perfect. They needed you to show up, they needed you to see them, they needed you to believe in them. Robert reached down and gently touched Matthew's hair, careful not to wake him. "I am sorry," he whispered. "I am sorry I was not there. I am sorry I did not believe in you. I am sorry I let my fear keep me away, but I am here now and I am not leaving. I promise you both, your daddy is here and I am going to spend the rest of my life making up for the time I lost." The boys slept on, unaware of their father's late-night vigil. But Robert felt something settle in his chest as he spoke the words out loud. A commitment, a vow, a new beginning. He stayed there for a long time, watching his son sleep before finally returning to his own room. When he lay down in his bed, he felt more at peace than he had in years. His life had irrevocably changed tonight. His comfortable numbness had been shattered. He would have to feel things now, joy and pain and fear and hope. He would have to be vulnerable. He would have to risk being hurt. But that was the price of love, and his sons were worth any price. The next morning, Robert was awake before dawn. He showered and dressed, not in his usual business suit but in casual clothes, jeans and a soft sweater. He wanted to be comfortable enough to sit on the floor. He wanted to look approachable. He wanted his sons to see him as a person, not as the distant figure in the suit who occasionally appeared and then vanished. He went to the kitchen and found Diana already there making breakfast. She looked surprised to see him. "Mr. Harrison, you are up early." "I could not sleep," Robert admitted. "I kept thinking about last night, about everything that happened. Diana, I want you to know how grateful I am, not just for what you have done for Christopher and Matthew, but for calling me out, for making me see what I was missing. You could have just accepted the job and continued being the only person in my sons' lives, but you demanded that I step up. That took courage." Diana poured coffee into a mug and handed it to him. "Those boys need their father. I could give them education and care, but only you can give them your love. Only you can show them who they are and where they come from. That is not my place. My place is to support you in them, to help you all become the family you are meant to be." Robert sipped the coffee. It was strong and hot, exactly what he needed. "What is the plan for today?" Diana's face lit up. "Well, normally I would do morning exercises with them. Gentle stretching to keep their muscles from getting too tight. Then we practice sounds and words for about 30 minutes. Then I read to them. After lunch we work on cognitive skills, colors, numbers, shapes. Then more reading, maybe some music. They love music. Matthew especially responds to rhythm. In the evening we do calm down activities to help them get ready for bed." "Can I help with any of that?" Robert asked. "Can I be part of their routine?" "You can be part of all of it," Diana said warmly. "In fact, I think you should be. The more time you spend with them, the more comfortable they will become with you, and the more you will learn about who they are as individuals. Christopher is more cautious. He thinks before he acts. He likes things to be predictable. Matthew is more impulsive. He will try anything. He gets frustrated more easily, but he also bounces back faster. They have such different personalities once you get to know them." Robert realized he did not know his sons had different personalities. He had thought of them as the boys, a single unit defined by their disability. He had never considered that they might be distinct individuals with their own temperaments and preferences. "Tell me more," he said. "I want to know everything." Diana smiled and began talking, describing in detail the quirks and characteristics of Christopher and Matthew. As she spoke, Robert felt his sons becoming real to him in a way they had never been before. They were not patients. They were not tragedies. They were Christopher and Matthew, two boys who happened to have physical limitations but who were so much more than their diagnosis. When the night nurse came to hand off her shift, Diana excused herself to go get the boys ready for their day. Robert followed her to the medical wing, ready to begin his first full day as a real father to his sons. As he walked down the hallway, he felt nervous. What if the boys did not respond to him the way they had last night? What if last night had been a fluke? What if they rejected him? But when he entered the room and Christopher saw him, the little boy's face brightened. "Dada," Christopher said. It was the most beautiful sound Robert had ever heard. Robert spent the entire morning on the floor with his sons, and for the first time in 4 years he was exactly where he needed to be. Diana guided him through their routine with patient instructions, showing him how to support Christopher's head during stretching exercises, how to position Matthew's legs to prevent cramping, how to make eye contact and speak slowly so the boys could follow along. Every few minutes, one of the boys would say "Dada" and look at Robert with those bright, intelligent eyes, and each time it happened, Robert felt a piece of his broken heart click back into place. By lunchtime, Robert's back ached from sitting on the floor and his arms were tired from helping support the boys, but he had never felt more alive. He was sweating and exhausted and completely happy. Diana prepared pureed food for the boys. They could not yet manage solid foods because their swallowing muscles were weak, and she showed Robert how to feed them carefully, watching to make sure they did not choke. "Christopher likes carrots but hates peas," Diana explained as she spooned orange mush into one boy's mouth. "Matthew will eat anything, but he eats too fast and then gets hiccups. You have to slow him down." Robert took the spoon and tried feeding Matthew. Sure enough, the boy opened his mouth eagerly, trying to gulp down the food. "Easy, buddy," Robert said gently. "Take your time, the food is not going anywhere." Matthew made an impatient sound and Diana laughed. "He has your personality, I think. Always in a hurry, always wanting more." Robert looked at his son and saw the truth in her words. Matthew did have his drive, his impatience, his hunger for everything life could offer. And Christopher, watching cautiously before trying new things, had inherited Catherine's calculating nature but without her cruelty. These boys were not blank slates, they were people, his people. After lunch, Diana suggested they try something new. "I think it is time to take them outside." They have been cooped up in this medical wing their whole lives. They have never felt sunshine on their faces. They have never seen the sky except through windows. What do you think?" Robert felt a stab of shame. His sons were 4 years old and had never been outside. He owned a beautiful estate with gardens and lawns and a pond, and his sons had never experienced any of it. "Yes," he said immediately. "Absolutely yes. What do we need?" Diana smiled. "We will need their wheelchairs, not the hospital kind, something more comfortable, and blankets to support their heads and bodies, and someone to help us carry them, but I think they are ready. I think they would love it." Within an hour, Robert had ordered 2 custom wheelchairs that could recline and provide full body support. They would arrive in 3 days, but Robert did not want to wait 3 days. "I will carry them," he said. "One at a time. We can take them out right now." Diana looked uncertain. "Mr. Harrison, they are not as light as they look, and you have to be very careful with their positioning. If their heads are not supported properly, they could have trouble breathing. If their spines are not aligned, then you will tell me exactly how to hold them, and I will do it exactly right," Robert said firmly. "My sons are going to see the sun today, right now." Diana studied his face, then nodded. "All right, but we go slowly, and if I say we need to go back inside, we go back inside immediately. Their safety comes first." "Agreed." Diana showed Robert how to lift Christopher, supporting his head with one arm and his body with the other, keeping his spine straight. Christopher made a nervous sound as Robert picked him up, but Diana was right there, her hand on Christopher's arm. "It is okay, baby. Your daddy has got you. He is going to take you on an adventure. Are you ready to go outside?" Christopher's eyes went wide. "Out," he said uncertainly. It was a new word, one Diana must have been teaching him. "Yes, out," Diana said excitedly. "You are going outside for the first time. You are going to see trees and flowers and feel the wind. Won't that be wonderful?" Robert carried Christopher through the mansion, Diana walking beside them, constantly checking to make sure Christopher's position was correct. The household staff stopped and stared as they passed. Robert knew what they were thinking. They had never seen him carry his sons before. They had never seen him interact with them at all beyond brief, uncomfortable visits. Everything was different now, and they would all have to adjust. When Robert pushed open the back door and stepped onto the terrace, Christopher's entire body stiffened. His eyes went huge, his mouth fell open. "Sky," Diana said, pointing up. "That is the sky, Christopher, and that bright thing is the sun. Can you feel how warm it is?" Robert stood still, holding his son, watching Christopher's face as he experienced the outside world for the first time. The boy was completely mesmerized. His eyes tracked a bird flying overhead. When a breeze ruffled his hair, he made a surprised sound. When a butterfly landed on the terrace railing nearby, Christopher's whole attention focused on it with laser intensity. "Blue," Christopher whispered, looking at the sky. "Yes," Diana praised him. "The sky is blue. You remembered. You are so smart." Robert felt tears burning in his eyes again. He was crying more in the past 24 hours than he had in the past 24 years. But these were good tears. These were tears of gratitude and wonder and overwhelming love. They stayed outside for 15 minutes, letting Christopher absorb everything. Then Robert carried him back inside and went to get Matthew. Matthew's reaction was even more dramatic. The moment he felt the sunshine on his face, he laughed. It was a rusty, unpracticed sound, like he had to remember how to do it, but it was definitely a laugh. Pure joy. "More," Matthew shouted. More, yes, more," Diana said, laughing too. "There is so much more out here. Look at the trees, look at the flowers, look at the grass." Robert walked Matthew around the terrace, describing everything they saw. Diana had been right. Matthew was bolder than Christopher, less cautious, more eager to experience everything at once. When a bee buzzed past, Christopher would have pulled back nervously, but Matthew tried to lean toward it, wanting a closer look. After both boys had their outdoor time, Robert was exhausted but exhilarated. His arms ached and his back was sore, but he felt more accomplished than he did after closing a billion-dollar deal. He had given his sons something they had never had before, an experience, a memory, a moment of joy. That evening, after the boys were in bed, Robert and Diana sat in the kitchen with tea. The house was quiet around them. "Thank you for today," Robert said, "for pushing me to take them outside. For teaching me how to interact with them, for everything." Diana wrapped her hands around her mug. "You did well today. The boys responded to you beautifully. Christopher already trusts you more than he did yesterday. Matthew is starting to look for you. That is huge progress." "I have 4 years to make up for," Robert said quietly. "I do not know if that is even possible." "You cannot change the past," Diana said gently. "You can only change what you do from this moment forward, and you are doing that. You are here, you are present, you are trying. That is what matters." Robert nodded, but the guilt still weighed heavy on him. 4 years. 4 years of his sons' lives that he had missed because he had been too much of a coward to face his own pain. He thought about Catherine, probably on a beach somewhere in Europe, living her best life without a single thought for the children she had abandoned. He thought about all the nurses who had cared for Christopher and Matthew with professional efficiency but no real love. He thought about how different things could have been if he had just been brave enough to be a real father from the beginning. "Do you think they will forgive me?" he asked. "For not being there?" Diana considered the question seriously. "I think children are remarkably forgiving, especially when they see real change. But Robert," she paused, seeming to weigh her words, "you also need to forgive yourself. You were grieving, you were in shock, you were dealing with a traumatic situation in the only way you knew how. You made mistakes, yes, but you are correcting them now. That takes strength. Give yourself some credit." Robert looked at this woman who had entered his life as an invisible housekeeper and was now becoming one of the most important people in his world. "How did you get so wise?" Diana smiled sadly. "I have made plenty of my own mistakes. I know what regret feels like. I know what it is like to wish you could go back and change things. But I also know that beating yourself up does not change anything. Action changes things. Love changes things. You are taking action now. You are loving your sons now. That is what they will remember." Over the next few weeks, a routine developed. Robert restructured his entire life around Christopher and Matthew. He moved his office into a room adjacent to the medical wing so he could be close to his sons while still managing his business. He took all his meetings via video conference. He delegated responsibilities to his executives that he had previously insisted on handling personally. His board of directors was confused and concerned by his sudden withdrawal from day-to-day operations, but Robert did not care. His sons were more important than quarterly earnings reports. Every morning, Robert was the first person Christopher and Matthew saw when they woke up. He helped Diana with their morning routine. He fed them breakfast. He participated in their therapy sessions. He read to them. He carried them outside every single day, rain or shine, so they could experience the world beyond their room. The boys' progress accelerated dramatically. With both Robert and Diana working with them consistently, Christopher and Matthew were learning new words almost daily. Christopher could now say about 25 words clearly. Matthew was up to 20. They were learning to form simple two-word phrases. More juice, one up, hi Dada, love mama. That last one had nearly destroyed Robert the first time he heard it. Matthew had looked at Diana and said clearly, love mama. Diana had burst into tears and hugged him, and Robert had had to walk away for a moment to compose himself. His sons called Diana mama and called him Dada. They had created a family out of the broken pieces of their lives. The household staff gradually adjusted to the new normal. The nurses learned to take direction from Diana without resentment. The other employees stopped looking surprised when they saw Robert on the floor playing with his sons. Even Robert's assistant, who had initially been horrified by his schedule changes, came to accept that this was how things were now. But not everyone was happy with the changes. 2 months after Diana's promotion, Robert received a letter from Catherine's lawyers. His ex-wife had heard rumors about his son's progress and wanted to re-enter their lives. She was claiming that she had been suffering from postpartum depression when she left and that she had always intended to return once she was mentally healthy. She wanted shared custody. She wanted to be part of Christopher and Matthew's miracle recovery. Robert read the letter twice, his blood turning to ice. Then he called his own lawyers. Whatever it takes, he told them. I do not care what it costs. Catherine is never getting near my sons. She abandoned them. She walked away from disabled infants because they were not perfect enough for her. She does not get to come back now that they are showing progress. She does not get to pretend she cares. Stop her. Do whatever you have to do. His lawyers assured him they would fight it. Catherine had signed away her parental rights in the divorce. She had not contacted the children in 4 years. She had not paid a cent of child support. Robert had waived it in exchange for her complete disappearance from their lives. No judge would give her custody now. But she could still cause problems. She could drag them into court. She could create media attention. She could upset the careful, loving world that Robert and Diana had built for Christopher and Matthew. That evening, Robert sat in the boys' room watching them sleep and felt a fierce protectiveness rise up in him. These were his sons. He had failed them once, but he would not fail them again. No one was going to hurt them. No one was going to use them for publicity or money or to soothe their own guilty conscience. He would burn his entire empire to the ground before he let Catherine anywhere near Christopher and Matthew. Diana found him there around midnight. She did not say anything, just sat down beside him on the floor. They sat in silence for a long time. Finally, Robert spoke. Catherine wants custody. Her lawyer sent a letter today. Diana stiffened. Can she do that? Can she take them? No, Robert said firmly. My lawyers say she has no legal standing. She signed away her rights, but she can make things difficult. She can create drama. She can try to paint herself as a victim who was suffering from mental illness and is now recovered and wants her children back. Some people might believe her. Anyone who spends 5 minutes with those boys will know they do not know her, Diana said fiercely. They know us. They know you are their father and I am. She stopped, seeming uncertain how to finish that sentence. You are their mother, Robert said simply. In every way that matters, you are the one who loved them when no one else would. You are the one who believed in them. You are the one who taught them how to communicate. Biology does not make someone a mother. Love does, and you love them." Diana's eyes filled with tears. "I do love them more than anything. The thought of that woman showing up and confusing them or taking them away." "She will not," Robert promised. "I will make sure of it. They are safe. You are safe. This family we have built is safe. I promise you, Diana." She nodded, wiping her eyes. They sat together in the quiet room, two people who had found each other in the most unexpected way, united by their love for two extraordinary little boys. The custody battle never materialized. Catherine's lawyers withdrew their petition 2 weeks later without explanation. Robert suspected his own lawyers had found something they could use as leverage, perhaps evidence of Catherine's neglect, or threats to expose her abandonment of disabled children to the media she so loved. Robert did not ask for details. He did not care how they had stopped her. He only cared that she was gone. As the months passed, Christopher and Matthew continued to progress in ways that seemed miraculous to everyone except Robert and Diana. To them, the boys' development was simply the natural result of being loved, believed in, and given opportunities to learn. By their 5th birthday, Christopher could speak in complete sentences. His words were still slightly slurred and he had to concentrate hard to form them, but he could express himself clearly. He could tell you if he was hungry or tired or wanted to go outside. He could answer questions. He could tell jokes that did not quite make sense but made everyone laugh anyway. Matthew was not far behind, though his communication style was different, more physical, more emotional, supplementing his words with sounds and expressions that conveyed what his vocabulary could not yet express. Neither boy would ever walk. Their cerebral palsy was too severe. Their leg muscles would never develop enough strength, but they could use motorized wheelchairs now, custom designed to support their bodies while giving them independence of movement. Watching Christopher zoom around the mansion in his wheelchair, laughing as he chased after the dog Robert had gotten them, was one of the greatest joys of Robert's life. The doctors who had once declared the boys hopeless were now writing medical papers about their case. How had 2 children with such severe disabilities developed communication skills that their diagnosis said should be impossible? What intervention had made the difference? The answer was simple, though the doctors did not want to hear it. Love. Belief, time, attention. Treating them like they were capable instead of assuming they were not, seeing them as people instead of patients. Diana became not just the boys' caregiver but a permanent member of the Harrison family. Robert had her title legally changed to guardian and gave her partial custody rights, ensuring that if anything ever happened to him, Diana would be able to continue caring for Christopher and Matthew. She moved from the guest suite into rooms that were truly hers, decorated with her own things, a real home instead of just a place to stay. The relationship between Robert and Diana evolved too. It happened gradually, so slowly that neither of them noticed at first. They spent every day together working as a team to care for the boys. They ate meals together, they made decisions together, they celebrated victories together and supported each other through challenges. They became partners, friends, and then somewhere along the way something more. Robert could not pinpoint the exact moment he fell in love with Diana. Maybe it was watching her teach Matthew to count by singing silly songs. Maybe it was the night she fell asleep on the couch in the boys' room, exhausted from a long day, and Robert had covered her with a blanket and felt his heart ache with tenderness. Maybe it was the morning she made him coffee without asking and knew exactly how he liked it. Or maybe it was simply the accumulation of 1,000 small moments, 1,000 acts of kindness and devotion that added up to love. He did not say anything for a long time. Diana was an employee technically, even if she felt like so much more. Robert did not want to make her uncomfortable or make her feel like her job was contingent on returning his feelings. But then, one evening after the boys were asleep, Diana and Robert were sitting in the garden watching the sunset. It had become their routine, a quiet moment together at the end of each day, a chance to decompress and talk about how the boys were doing. "Robert," Diana said quietly, "can I ask you something? Anything. Do you ever think about what happens when the boys are older, when they are grown men and do not need constant care anymore? What happens to me then?" Robert turned to look at her, surprised by the vulnerability in her voice. "What do you mean?" "I mean," Diana struggled to find the words. "I am 39 years old, I have no family, no friends really. My entire life is Christopher and Matthew, and I love that. I would not change it for anything. But someday they will not need me the way they do now. Someday I will just be the woman who used to be their nanny. And I will be alone again. I think about that sometimes, about what my life will look like when I am not needed anymore." Robert reached over and took her hand. His heart was pounding, but he kept his voice steady. "Diana, you will always be needed, always, not just by Christopher and Matthew, though they will always need you no matter how old they get. But by me, I need you every single day. You are not just the boys' caregiver, you are part of this family, you are part of my life, And if I am being completely honest, I do not want to imagine my life without you in it. Not now, not ever." Diana looked at him, her eyes wide. "Robert, what are you saying?" He took a breath. This was terrifying in a way that negotiating billion-dollar deals had never been, but Diana deserved the truth. "I am saying that I love you, I am in love with you, I have been for months, maybe longer. I love the way you sing to the boys. I love how you never give up, even when things are difficult. I love your strength and your kindness and your enormous heart. I love how you made me a better man and a better father. I love everything about you, and I understand if you do not feel the same way. I understand if this is awkward or unwelcome, but I needed you to know. I needed you to know that you will never be alone because I will be here, for as long as you want me." Diana's eyes filled with tears, but she was smiling. "You foolish man," she whispered. "Of course I love you. I have loved you since the day you knelt down on that carpet and tried to connect with your sons even though you were terrified. I have loved you through every moment of watching you become the father those boys deserve. I have loved you through every conversation, every shared meal, every quiet evening. I just never thought, I never imagined you could feel the same way. I am just a housekeeper." "You are Robert Harrison." "You are Diana Martinez," Robert corrected her. "And you are the most remarkable woman I have ever known. You are the woman who saved my sons, who saved me, and if you will have me, I would very much like to spend the rest of my life proving to you how extraordinary you are." Diana laughed through her tears. "That is a pretty good offer. Is that a yes?" "That is a yes." Robert leaned over and kissed her, gentle and tentative, like they were both teenagers figuring this out for the first time. When they pulled apart, Diana was crying and laughing at the same time. "The boys are going to be so confused when they figure out that Mama and Dada are together," she said. Robert grinned. "I think they will be thrilled. They have been trying to get us to sit next to each other for weeks. Christopher keeps making room between us during story time. I think they have been matchmaking." "Smart boys." "The smartest," Robert agreed. They sat in the garden as the sun set, holding hands, planning a future that neither of them had imagined possible a year ago. A future built not on money or status or perfection, but on love and dedication and the belief that broken things could be made whole. 6 months later, Robert and Diana were married in a small ceremony in the mansion's garden. Christopher and Matthew were there in their wheelchairs, dressed in tiny suits, beaming with joy. Christopher was the ring bearer, carefully holding the rings in his lap. When the officiant asked if anyone objected to the marriage, Matthew shouted no, so loudly that everyone burst out laughing. It was perfect. After the ceremony, during the reception, Robert gave a speech. "A year and a half ago, I was a man who had everything and nothing. I had wealth and success and prestige. I had a beautiful home and a powerful company and respect from everyone who mattered, but I did not have what truly mattered. I did not have a relationship with my sons. I did not have love. I did not have purpose. Then Diana walked into my life and everything changed. She did not just teach my sons to speak. She taught me to listen. She taught me to see. She taught me that the most valuable things in life cannot be bought. They can only be given freely from one heart to another. My sons were called broken. Medical experts said they would never communicate, never connect, never have meaningful lives, but they were not broken. They were just waiting for someone to believe in them. Diana believed, and because she believed, miracles happened. Christopher and Matthew can speak now. They can express themselves. They can tell us what they think and feel and want. They can joke and argue and ask questions. They are fully alive in a way I was told would never be possible. But the miracle is not just what happened to them. The miracle is what happened to me. I was broken too. I was hiding from my own pain, running from my own failure, afraid to be vulnerable, afraid to love. Diana fixed me too. She showed me that love is not about perfection. It is about showing up. It is about believing. It is about choosing every single day to be present for the people who matter most. So today, I am marrying the woman who gave me back my sons and gave me back myself. I am marrying my partner, my best friend, my hero. I am marrying Diana, and I am the luckiest man alive." There was not a dry eye in the room. Even Christopher and Matthew were crying, though Robert suspected they did not fully understand what was happening. They just knew it was important and emotional, and they responded to that. As the reception continued, Robert found himself standing to the side, watching his new wife dance with his sons. She had persuaded their physical therapist to show her how to move them safely in their wheelchairs to music, and now she was spinning them around the dance floor while they shrieked with delight. This was his family. This was his life, not the life he had planned, not the life he had imagined when he was building his empire and collecting properties and chasing success, but a better life, a real life. A life built on love. Robert thought about the man he had been 18 months ago, the man who had stood in a doorway and watched his son speak for the first time, the man who had been so consumed by his own pain that he could not see the miracles happening under his own roof. That man was gone. In his place was someone Robert actually liked, someone who knew how to be a father, someone who understood that true wealth was not measured in dollars but in moments. Moments like this one, watching his wife and sons laugh together. Moments like the morning cuddles before breakfast. Moments like reading bedtime stories and tucking in two little boys who called him Dada. Moments like the first time Christopher had looked at him and said, "Love you, Dada." That moment had been 3 months ago and Robert had cried so hard he had to leave the room. But they were good tears, healing tears, tears that washed away 4 years of regret and replaced it with gratitude. Now standing at his own wedding reception, Robert made a silent promise. He promised to never take this for granted, to never forget how close he came to missing all of this, to never let work or fear or pain distract him from what mattered most. He promised to be present, to show up, to love fiercely and without reservation. He promised to be the father and husband that Diana and Christopher and Matthew deserved. Diana caught his eye from across the room and smiled at him, her face glowing with happiness. Robert smiled back, his heart so full it felt like it might burst. His sons could not walk. They would need assistance with many things for their entire lives. Their future would include challenges and limitations that most families never had to face. But they could speak, they could love, they could experience joy, they could dream. And Robert would be there for all of it, not as a distant figure providing resources, but as a father, as a partner, as part of a family that had been built from broken pieces and was now stronger than anything Robert could have constructed on his own. The greatest lesson of Robert Harrison's life had been delivered by a housekeeper who earned minimum wage and two little boys who the world had written off as hopeless. The lesson was simple: love is the most powerful force in the universe. It can heal what medicine cannot touch. It can achieve what experts say is impossible. It can transform lives and create miracles. All you have to do is believe. All you have to do is show up. All you have to do is see the person in front of you, really see them, and love them exactly as they are. Robert Harrison had learned that lesson, and it had changed everything. The end. Never underestimate the power of presence and unconditional love. Success, wealth, and status mean nothing if you are not present for the people who matter most. The greatest miracles in life do not come from money or medicine. They come from believing in others when everyone else has given up, from showing up consistently, and from loving people not for who you wish they were, but for who they already are. Sometimes the person who changes your life is not the one you expect. Sometimes strength comes wrapped in ordinary packages. And sometimes the greatest gift you can give another person is simply to see them, believe in them, and refuse to give up on them. That is the gift Diana gave to Christopher and Matthew. That is the gift she gave to Robert. And that is a gift we can all choose to give to the people in our lives. Subscribe to this channel to support our growth and join us for more powerful, life-changing stories. Where are you watching from? Drop your country in the comments below and let us know what touched your heart most about this story. Your engagement helps us reach more people with messages that matter.